Let me just set the scene for you guys. You're a second year medical student. You've just finished your end of year exams that included embryology, neurology, pharmacology, and you're sitting in a group interview call with 8 other students who have done degrees such as econometric, pure econ, pure math, finance and accounting. You're interviewing for an internship in finance. And not only do you get the internship, but you get the grad offer, not even despite, but because of the fact that you're a medical student. That was me 2 or 3 years ago. And I want to tell you guys exactly how I did it, how and why you should too. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. I'm Anashay. This is a long overdue video, and for that I'm sorry, because I did do this internship in my second year summer and I'm now in my 5th year of medical school. It was a while ago, but I feel like it's really relevant now. First of all, I think it's important that you understand my actual expertise and why you should even be watching this video from me, because who am I? I had always been interested in finance. I had a lot of family who had a background in finance and no one else in my family did medicine. So I was always thinking that finance would be a more straightforward path for me. It comes very naturally, and I loved business studies and GCSEs. It just made sense. All of these things already made sense. But I knew I wanted to do something else, and I wanted to do medicine for other reasons. Even though I wanted to do medicine, I did always feel like I could prosper in finance or in something else more corporate. I really, saw my Jessica Pearson in that way. Right before I started medicine, I actually did get cold feet and I applied for degree apprenticeships. And I actually did get 2 degree apprenticeships, both of them in one of the big 4 accounting firms. Evidently, I ended up rejecting them and studying medicine, which I do now. But there was always that in the back of my mind, what if I had gone into finance? What would my life look like? How would I be progressing in my goals otherwise? If I was really smart, I would have started at spring weeks. Honestly, I would have done a spring week in first year, but I didn't actually know about them until later. In my second year of medical school, I realized, oh my goodness, there's such thing as internships, and most of them don't actually have a degree requirement. Of course, naturally, in accounting and finance roles, most students are going to be accounting and finance students. However, I didn't see it as a barrier. I had the arrogance of I already got a degree apprenticeship before from the same category of firms that allowed me to have the confidence to apply, because I actually know no different amount of content from when I was at the end of my year 13 to now. So surely it shouldn't make a difference. I was told many times that medical students don't need LinkedIn, which I disagree with, okay? You definitely need LinkedIn. Medicine is one of those weird degrees where, because your job role, and it's the same with pharmacy and dentistry, because your job role is almost guaranteed, at the end, people just assume, of course, that's what you want to do. And therefore, it's only at the end that you scrabble around and start looking for different options if you don't want to do it anymore. I heavily disagree with this. I think as soon as you start medicine, you should be looking around at everything. You're still only young. You decided medicine probably at 16 because you would start thinking about BMAT, etc. So you should have been allowing yourself to explore all throughout medical school, even before you finish. And medical school is 6 years or 5, depending on if you intercalate or not. So there's a lot of time to explore your passions. I think you should do that with spring weeks, internships, multiple internships if you have the summer. So the context for me is I started medical school having rejected 2 degree apprenticeships in accounting and finance already, and then always wondering about it. So in my second year, I completed an audit internship. It was a 4-week internship. At the end of my 3rd year, I did another internship in strategy consulting, and that was 6 weeks. I was always the only medical student. In fact, I was usually the only person who did any kind of science degree. I did feel levels of imposter syndrome, and that's another story for another day, honestly. But my point is, I now have a CV that has the same kind of experience as someone who did accounting and finance. You don't want your first ever show of interest in finance and accounting if you have been interested in finance and accounting, or whatever degree be at the very end of your medical school career, if you have genuinely been interested in it before that. And at the end of the day, a paid internship, it's a way to make money if that's also what your incentive is to do over summer. It's not easy, it's just as competitive, but I don't even care to tell you that part, because as medical students you've already gone through some of the most competitive processes ever. Because I've actually had acceptance offers from 3 of the big 4, I do kind of know what it takes to go through a competitive 7-stage interview process and get an acceptance letter. So let's get on to the bulk of the video, which is the how. So the very first thing that's super important that you need to do is research. The way an interviewer or the recruiter can look at your CV is typically they're going to be curious, probably subconscious, but they have an underlying bias to believe that you probably don't know what you're applying for, and therefore your research has to be 10 times better than your counter peers. There's already going to be a presumption from the person who's your recruiter that you don't know it. So they're going to assume that someone who does accounting and finance knows it, but you don't, because you do medicine. Why would you know that? And so you actually have to prove a point. So they're actually going to scrutinize your answer more because they have a preconception that you don't understand it already. So that's why your research is super important. And the way you can compete with the people who are doing accounting and finance, not just know generally what the role is, as in what it's described in its definition on Google or on their website, but knowing the actual ins and outs of what you will do at your internship. What would your genuine day-to-day be like? Watch videos, watch YouTube videos, now watch TikTok videos of a real day in the life. I even gave them a really good metaphor of auditors are the detectives of medicine. They make sure that people are doing things exactly how they say they're going to do it. But that's not enough, because an accounting and finance student knows that. And they might even use some finance and audit technical jargon that you don't have. So you're no longer competitive. So what you should do is to actually understand, what would I do at the internship? You can ask people on LinkedIn to find that out, or you can watch YouTube videos which are very accessible of what they actually do. So what I was doing on a day-to-day was actually checking controls, updating spreadsheet documents, and making sure that I'm keeping in contact with the company I'm auditing to send over the relevant documents in the exact same format as we've asked in order to do the audit efficiently and effectively. Knowing what an actual day-to-day would involve, knowing that I'm updating a tracker, I'm using Excel, knowing what the actual job entails as opposed to what a general auditor does is much more impressive, and therefore they would feel rest assured that you actually know what you're applying for and you're not just applying because you want to leave medicine and any job will do. Research using the Financial Times, The Economist, on things that genuinely interest you. Interest is one of those things that's hard to fake, and so scroll for hours if you have to, but find an article that genuinely interests you and go through it. Go through the things that you think are its limitations, read it well, and so when they ask you about what's something that interests you about this role, or if you can weave it into just a conversation in general, then it shows that you are genuinely interested in it. So in my experience, I was looking at AI. I thought AI was really cool then, 2 or 3 years ago when I was doing my interviews. It was still quite novel. It was nowhere near what ChatGPT 5.0 is right now. It was not like that. So I was talking about my interest in AI being used in audit to keep some efficient regulatory processes in place. And I also saw the use of drones, and I thought that was really cool. Even when I didn't have the opportunity to bring it up in an interview, when they would ask, do you have any questions at the end? I'll say something along the lines of, I've actually been asking this to a few auditors. I wondered if you have any input on this. What do you think of this? And whatever you have interest in whatever you've researched as your interest. So even if it doesn't come up, they don't ask you, is there anything you've read recently? Those, do you have any questions at the end? Don't be thinking, oh, the interview's over, let me just get this over with. No, I don't have any questions, bye. That's the worst thing you can do. That's your opportunity to impress. And at least one of your questions should be like that show you're actually interested. Let me give you advice on interviews. There's a whole nother video that I can do. I'm gonna try and stay on track for this video because I can talk for days apparently. So yeah, research is the very, very most important thing, especially if you're applying to somewhere outside of your degree, because their immediate presumption is that you don't actually know it and you're not actually interested, so prove them wrong early. The second thing is the application process. So all of the big four companies have a very, very strenuous application process. You need to make sure that your CV is tailored to that specific job role. If there's an optional cover letter, do it. It's going to take time, of course it is, but do it. It's not optional for you because you don't make sense on the system. You, of all people, should be adding a cover letter, and make sure that cover letter highlights the transferable skills which would be hard to see otherwise. So for example, I would talk about the nuances of diagnostics and how you have to apply lateral thinking, and I translated that to the same way you have to apply lateral thinking in audit. So you have to be professionally scrutinous in terms of not just believing everything exactly how people say it is, but actually checking it yourself. And you have to do that the same way in diagnostic, in medicine, where you can't just exactly trust what the patient is telling you. So if they say, I'm taking my medications every day, but the blood results don't show that, you have to apply a level of scrutiny. Use the fact that you do medicine or you do a different degree as your leverage and not your disadvantage. Every single application they're going to see is going to be very, very similar. It's going to be people who've done accounting and finance or whatever it is in that specialty who have done a spring week, and everything is pretty much the same because there's a step process. You are going to stand out. So either you're going to stand out as why they applying, or you're going to stand out as, oh, I would have never seen that link before, but I'm intrigued. Why don't we just get to interview and see? Put yourself in a position where you standing out is helping you and not hindering you. Milk it, if anything. Be excited to speak about how you are different, and you will be different, and being different is good. Third thing that you need to do, the how, is networking. So speak to people who are doing what you want to do. Most people will be really interested. Like, I found that when I would speak to people who worked in PwC, they were so curious at the fact that I wanted to do it. So if anything, people will be honoured that you want to look at what they're doing and you have good things to say about their career, to the point where you would potentially switch out of your career to theirs. Keep your networks open. I've definitely kept in contact with people who I think if I did ever want to just dip my toe back in, I could. So make sure you network. LinkedIn is your friend. Use LinkedIn. It doesn't matter if you're a medical student, you should have LinkedIn. Show genuine curiosity. At the end of the day, you want to position yourself as someone who has a unique perspective. So when I was talking about leveraging, the fact that you are different is your best friend. So in your interview process, what makes you different? Sometimes they ask you those questions. Instead of just saying, oh, I'm a medical student, that's different. Make sure you know, I'm actually just a fresh set of eyes. My background's completely different. I think that's really beneficial for the team because now you have a perspective that's completely void of what you've been taught in textbooks accounting and finance should look like. And that is a great thing. And the last thing is practicing interviews. So I did a lot of practice interviews. I was fortunate enough, like I said, that my family are in finance and accounting. So I did have my parents who could help me, and they also had their work friends who worked in higher management in the same field. But if you don't have that, reach out, talk to your friends' friends and say, do any of your parents work in this field? Make sure you have someone who's senior in that and ask them to do a mock interview with you, or someone who's already done an internship. I would be more than happy to do that. I've done interview prep for people before actually, and it's similar to the interviews that you do for medicine. If there was demand for it, I could definitely share my CV, share my personal statements for some of these job roles, or the essence of the personal statement / cover letter / CV, and also help with some interview prep. But that's something I would be looking at if there was demand. First and foremost, just make sure you find someone who can do some interview with you that's in that department, in a similar department, or even if you have friends who do accounting and finance, ask them and they might just tell you, do you know what, it doesn't sound like you know what you're talking about. Be really honest with your friends. And that's the how, let's move right onto the why. You probably already have your own reason why, which is why you've clicked on this video, but I'm going to affirm those and give you some more so you know why it's actually useful that you do it. I encourage every single medical student to do this, especially in the current climate of the NHS and unemployment and everything else that's going on. But even if you're not in medicine and you just want to explore, your 20s are for exploring, including your career. Just because you picked a degree doesn't mean you're stuck with that degree. Just because you picked a career doesn't mean that you have to follow the linear path of that career. There's 5 whys as to why you should do an internship in a career that's dissimilar to yours. So the first one is your CV will be different. It will show some differentiation and it shows your adaptability as a person. So if you have breadth, it's actually really impressive no matter what career you go into, even if you end up staying in your career. The second why is about career perspective and backup options. So unfortunately, despite what people like to tell us, or what people believe, I think in general, the NHS isn't guaranteed. A job in medicine isn't actually guaranteed. And I think the recent articles and what's been going on with FY3 and locum shifts and specialty training posts has proved that a job in medicine isn't guaranteed. It's okay to do a different career while you're waiting for a different post for next year, for example, and you want to do that in something you actually want to do or something you actually have a remote interest in. And so doing an internship or doing some work experience even in different careers is going to put you in a position that means it'll be much easier for you to do that later in your medical life if you need to. Number 3 of the 5 whys, I am very big on wanting hospitals to be managed by people who understand medicine and business and finance. Right now there's a lot of people who are managing the bigger hospitals who aren't actually doctors, and you can help that by being that doctor. It also helps if you ever want to do anything in healthcare organisation, if you want to do or be a GP partner in the future. It helps being exposed to businesses outside of just the hospital as well. Personal growth is the 4th why. Imposter syndrome comes in loads of different ways and fonts and all these. At some points I did feel like I was the black sheep, but in a good way. If you're only around people who are better than you at a skill, naturally you're going to become much better at that skill. Pushing yourself to be in such an environment where you genuinely are the person with the least amount of knowledge, but willing to learn, is going to push you to what your potential is in that realm. And so it's actually should be exciting to be very bad at something or very new to something. And at the end of the day, if you weren't competent enough to do the role, and I had to keep telling myself this at my internship, if you weren't competent enough to do this role, they wouldn't have hired you. Don't insult the recruiter by you feeling like you don't belong. The person who decided you should be let in is really good at their job, and they decided you should be in. And so if you don't trust yourself, trust them, that they knew what they were doing letting you in. The last why is that there's no downside. If you do the internship and hate it, you can just go back to your career, and you now know that you don't want to do that. If you do it and love it, now you have exposure and some experience and something on your CV that will help you get into that role. If you do it and feel neutral about it, you've probably made a network of friends that are very different to your circle of friends that you're going to have made if you'd only stayed in your career. If anything, it just makes you a more interesting person in general. If you just keep thinking, keep doors open, there's no harm in keeping another door open. So if the only thing you take away from this video is this, I will be so content. Don't close a single door. No matter what career you're currently studying or doing, it's always beneficial to just keep another door open. Just try it. Might just be fun, a story to tell your kids, if nothing else. So just keep the door open. You don't lose anything. And I really hope that not only encouraged you to do an internship outside of whatever career you're currently studying or doing, but shown you a bit more about how. And if there's anything in this video that you're like, I need more details on that, let me know in the comments and I will do that, because I now see there's a need. So thank you so much for watching. I've been Anashay. Please like, comment and subscribe. Share this if you think it's going to be helpful to one of your friends. And if you would like some more help, you can reach me on all my socials. Love you. Bye. Oh yeah, and who am I? I'm Anna Shay. I'm the shit, 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 I'm the shit,